In this lesson, we are going to create the user authentication for our e-commerce system. So basically, there will be two user groups, seller and buyer. And here we are going to add three methods. One will be the login for users, one will be register regular users like buyers, and one for the register merchant. Merchant will be the sellers who are going to sell their products in our website. Now let's go to the admin and let's create two new groups over there. Here from the admin, go to groups, and now let's add a new group here. So we have added two new groups called buyer and seller. Now let's get back to the editor and figure out how we will add an user to a specific user group. We have already created login and register method along with a template as well as the forms in our previous lesson. So in this one, we are going to grab those files and copy into the main for ecom folder. So here inside the app1, we already have the methods to authenticate user like register user, login user. So let's copy also logout user. Let's copy all of this from here and we will paste it inside the views file of our ecom application. Now there are a few things that we need to import. Now we need to add the forms file, forms.py file inside our ecom folder. And here we will copy everything from the app1.forms. However, we don't need this one, so let's delete. Now we have imported the view methods as well as the forms. So now what we will do is go ahead inside our app1.templates file, and from there we will copy login registration. So here we have copied the login.html and registration.html. So now our registration and login methods should work. We have also copied the dashboard method, which basically renders a template dashboard.html. So for now, let's copy that too from the templates folder. And the last thing that we need to copy from our app1 folder is the paths. So now save this, and we also need to import views. So now everything is ready for the user authentication, but before that we need to add this inside our settings.py file. Here in the installed apps section, we need to pass the ecom config, ecom.apps.ecom-config. In order to get the URLs as well as the application specific files, we need to register our app inside the installed apps section. And finally, the last one is we need to include our application URLs in the main urls.py file of our web folder. Now let's get back to the browser and see whether the login and registration are working or not. Now when we visit /ecom/login, we are getting the login template. Now let's check out the register URL too. So these two URLs are working correctly and rendering the correct template. Now we are going to add one more registration view that will register a merchant. So let's get back to our editor and figure out how we will do that. So here in our application specific urls.py file, we are going to add a new path. Once the path is registered, we need to get back to our views. And now let's copy the register user method and we are going to change it from register user to register merchant. Now for a merchant, we are going to add the user to the group seller, and for the user, we are going to add that user to the group buyer. Now here, after we authenticate a specific user, so what we are doing here is we are getting the group object from the database where the name is buyer, and after that we are calling user.groups.add buyer. Basically the user and group share some many-to-many relationship. So now we can call user.groups.add method to bind a specific group to a specific user. And that's it. Now let's copy this and paste inside our register merchant method, and here we will just change this from buyer to seller. Everything is done except that we need to import group. So here we have imported user and group from django.contrib.auth.models. So that's it for the registration. Now we are going to create a new template for the register merchant method. And there are a few things that we need to change. We are going to change this from app1 to ecom. So we have changed everything from app1 to ecom. Now we can just create our new template. It will look similar like the registration.html file. We just changed the form action here along with the card header. Now save this, and we are ready to provide the authentication for our e-commerce system. There is one thing that we need to do now. If you go inside the register merchant.html, here you can see it's extending the app.html file, which we have not copied inside this templates directory in our ecom application. So let's copy that along with the navbar. And now we need to change the links. Here we need to change few things like app1 to ecom to ecom. Now save this and let's go to register.merchant, and here we need to change app1 to ecom. Just like this, we need to change the registration and login templates. Once these links are updated, we need to do one last thing before we check this in our browser, and that is we need to add the app name. And here in our case, the app name will be ecom. Now save this and let's open the browser. So here you can see the navbar links are working correctly, and also the pages are rendering the correct view. So now let's check the register merchant. Okay, so now we are going to add a new user as a merchant. So the Robert Smith account is already registered. Now let's check from the admin. Okay, so here it is saying you are authenticated as seller 1, but we are not authorized to access this page. Would you like to log in to a different account? Yeah, we are going to log in as administrator. So here now we can log in, and for the seller 1, you can see in the group section, the group name buyer is available, and chosen groups are containing the seller group. So now the Robert Smith is part of group seller. We can also make some user seller and buyer too, but for this course we are going to separate users in 2 roles or 2 groups, that is seller and buyer. Now let's log out. So here it is saying reverse for index not found. Okay, so we don't have index for ecom. Actually we have that for app 1. Let's get back to the editor and fix this one. So here in views.py file, once the user is logged out successfully, we are going to redirect the user to the index page of our ecom, which we have not created yet. But in the next lesson, we are going to add that for our application.